let's take the prophets together, the major prophets and the minor prophets. We'll just ask the question up front, what is the difference between a major and a minor prophet? Is the major prophet somehow better than a minor prophet? Is a major prophet a man with a higher calling or greater spiritual gifts? What is the distinction here? None of those things. The only distinction between a major prophet and a minor prophet is that the major prophet wrote more. That's all. Minor prophets wrote smaller books. That's why they're minor prophets. There are 5 major prophetic books, but there are actually only 4 major prophets. Jeremiah wrote both the book that carries his name and the book of Lamentations. And so you'll notice that as we look through here. The first of the major prophets is Isaiah. He's often called the Messianic prophet because of the volume of Messianic prophecies in his book. Of course, the Messiah is the anointed one, pointing towards Jesus Christ, who is coming in the future. And many, many prophecies from Isaiah are quoted in the New Testament as referring to Christ. There are more references to Isaiah in the New Testament than to any other single prophet. Jeremiah is often called the weeping prophet. He prophesied about 100 years after Isaiah. He began preaching as a very young man during the reign of King Josiah, the last good king of Judah. And there were only 4 more kings to take the throne after Josiah until the king of Babylon would come in and totally destroy Jerusalem. Now, Jeremiah warned the people of Judah that they should really surrender to King Nebuchadnezzar, that it was really God's will that they go into exile. But of course, the people did not listen, as is normal for us human beings. We do not listen to God. They trusted in everyone and in everything except God. And so their downfall was great. And thus, Jeremiah preached to a stubborn and rebellious people. That's why he wept. That's one reason. Another reason is because as you read through the book of Lamentations, you realize he was there in the city of Jerusalem when it was under siege, and he saw terrible atrocities that went on. You can read some of those, just scan through the book of Lamentations, and you will see just how horrible a time it was when Jerusalem was destroyed there. The 4th prophet was, or the 4th book in the major prophets was Ezekiel. He was taken captive into Babylon, and he prophesied from Babylon. And he looked forward to a time when the remnant of Israel would return to their promised land. Daniel, the last of these major prophets, was also a captive in Babylon, but he enjoyed a special privilege of being taken into the leadership of the kingdom. And you read through there, he became a leader, one of the very few top leaders in Babylon under the Babylonian administration. And then when the Mede-Persia Empire came in and Darius the Mede took over Babylon, Daniel then was taken to be one of the leaders in his kingdom as well. Daniel's life spanned the 70 years that the Jews were held captive, until finally King Cyrus of the Persians sent a small group back to the land. Now, let's look at the minor prophets real quick. The minor prophets basically are God's lawyers sent to the people. The people had broken God's law, and God sent these lawyers to them to explain what they had broken and what the penalty was going to be, and to call people to repentance. In every prophetic book, you'll find these themes. You'll find pictures of people's sin. You'll find promises of judgment because of the sin. You'll see a pleading for repentance and a return to the Lord. You'll see promises of future deliverance, and you'll see pictures of a glorious future. So pick one of the minor prophets and read it, and look for these themes in there. You'll be surprised, and you'll find great growth in that practice. Hosea chapter 4 and verse 1 says, "Listen to the word of the Lord, O sons of Israel, for the Lord has a case against the inhabitants of the land, because there is not faithfulness or kindness or knowledge of God in the land. That's Hosea 4 and verse 1. You see, God had a case against them, so he had to send Hosea in to explain his case. All right, let me quickly just put these 12 up here on the screen for you. Notice the colors. Hosea and Amos were both prophets that were sent to the northern kingdom of Israel. Joel, Micah, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah all were prophets who were sent to the southern kingdom of Judah. Obadiah was sent to the kingdom of Edom, the descendants of Esau, who were actually related to the Israelites. Jonah and Nahum both were prophets sent against the city of Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. So they were sent outside also of Israel. And then Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, the last three, preached to the remnant of Judah who returned from Babylonian captivity. Let me summarize the Old Testament divisions one more time. Just look at them and let's recap this. Look again at your table of contents. I hope that you've taken the time maybe to mark out these different 5 groupings of books. Law, the first 5. History, the next 12. Wisdom, the next 5. Major prophets, the next 5. And finally, the last 12 are minor prophets. This is the story of God's first major covenant with mankind, specifically with the nation of Israel. But woven through almost every book is the promise of a glorious future when God would pour out blessings in a mighty way upon all nations.